Menace 2. Society once shocked all of America with its unflinching look at street life. But even after the lights faded, the chaos didn't stop on screen. Many of the young actors in real life fell into tragedy: addiction, bankruptcy, prison, and even death. Only a few found lasting success in Hollywood. In this video, we'll uncover who passed away, who is still with us, and what really happened after the spotlight dimmed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tyrin Turner as Khandi Lawson. In 1993, when Tyrin Turner took on the lead role in Menace 2 Society, he was only 22 years old. Turner transformed into Khandi Lawson, a black 18-year-old torn between dreams of escaping gang life and the lure of the streets. This powerful performance made Turner an instant cultural icon. But behind the spotlight, his real-life story began to reveal layers of darkness and injustice. Born on July 13, 1972 in south-central Los Angeles, a place he himself once called a neighborhood with no way out, Tyrin grew up surrounded by violence, poverty, and discrimination. He came from a neighborhood where the sound of gunfire was more familiar than music. From a young age, he witnessed loved ones get arrested, shot, or disappear without explanation. Film wasn't just a dream. It was his only lifeline to escape a doomed fate. When he was cast in Menace 2 Society, Turner knew he was essentially portraying his own life. But ironically, the role that brought him instant fame also became a heavy shadow that dragged him down. For years afterward, Tyrin was only offered roles like Kane, street kids, gang members, criminals. Whether in Belly, 1998, or various minor TV appearances, his career could never rise beyond the name Khandi Lawson. No major awards, no breakout success, and no recognition he truly deserved. The tragedy didn't end there. In 2023, from behind bars, Suge Knight, the former Death Row Records mogul, made a shocking claim that Tyrin Turner was gay and had once been the secret lover of Jamie Foxx, Dr. Dre, and Mr. Dalvin of Jodeci. The accusations were unsupported by any evidence, but they made headlines. Turner fired back strongly. "Jamie and I are like brothers. We've worked together for years. Suge should know better than to make up stories like that." But Suge didn't take it back. He even claimed, "Everyone knows. It's just that people stay quiet to protect reputations." Believe it or not, the public couldn't look away. Though he now lives quietly with his wife, Amina Garner, and their 2 children, Tyrin Turner's life remains an unsolved puzzle. A truly talented actor, misunderstood, and confined by the very success that launched him. As of 2025, he is 52 years old, living steadily with an estimated net worth of around $1 million USD. But what lingers most is not his wealth. It's the empty stare of Kane in the final moments of Menace 2 Society, as he looks toward the light, just before everything fades. It's also a metaphor for Turner's own life, a talent that stepped into the light, only to be buried by its very glow. Jada Pinkett Smith as Ronnie. In 1993, when she played Ronnie, the single mother and the only ray of light in Kane's bleak world, Jada Pinkett Smith was just 21 years old. Her character wasn't the center of the action, but she was the emotional core. A woman who was strong, yet gentle, determined to pull Kane's lost soul out of the cycle of crime. That role turned out to be prophetic, because in real life, Jada would become the center of countless storms, where emotion, power, and controversy constantly collided. Born on September 18, 1971 in Baltimore, Maryland, Jada Corinne Pinkett was raised by a teenage mother who worked as a nurse, in a life marked by poverty and instability. Her father left early, and her childhood was filled with addiction, violence, and a lack of love. She turned to the arts for escape, first piano, then dance, and later acting at the Baltimore School for the Arts, where she became close friends with Tupac Shakur. Their closeness sparked years of speculation, but Jada always insisted it was a love beyond gender. After Menace to Society, she quickly became a familiar face in Hollywood with roles in Set It Off, The Nutty Professor, and especially The Matrix Reloaded. But behind the glamour, Jada's life became a series of bombshell revelations, many of which she unveiled on her own show, Red Table Talk. She publicly acknowledged an entanglement with singer August Alsina during a period of separation from her husband, Will Smith. And then came the world-stopping moment at the 2022 Oscars, when Will stormed the stage and slapped Chris Rock after a joke about Jada's alopecia, a condition that had previously plunged her into deep depression. It wasn't the first time the public questioned her sexuality and marriage. In her 2023 memoir, Worthy, Jada was candid. "I've had experiences with women, but I love men." She admitted exploring herself in LGBTQ+ nightclubs in her youth, but completely denied being gay or in an open marriage. The most shocking revelation from the book? She and Will had been secretly separated since 2016. Though still a family, they were no longer husband and wife in the traditional sense. As of 2025, Jada is 53 years old with an estimated net worth of around $50 million USD. But the most valuable thing she's left behind isn't a number. It's the image of her standing silently beside Will Smith at the 2022 Critics' Choice red carpet, her head shaved, her eyes cold but proud, a symbol of pain that had been accepted, of a woman who no longer needed to hide anything. And perhaps, like her role as Ronnie years ago, Jada has never stopped trying to save something, whether it was Kane, Will, or herself. Larenz Tate as Kevin O-Dog Anderson. In 1993, when he appeared in Menace to Society as O-Dog, a cold-blooded killer only 17 years old, already used to blood and violence, Larenz Tate was only 20. This disturbingly convincing performance left audiences both horrified and captivated. But it also marked the beginning of a slow-burning curse. Larenz would forever be seen as the gangster he had portrayed so brilliantly. Larenz Tate was born on September 8, 1975, in Chicago, Illinois, the youngest of three brothers. When he was a child, his family moved to Los Angeles in search of better opportunities, but it was there that Larenz witnessed a society divided by race and street violence. He once said, "If it weren't for acting, I would have been O-Dog in real life." Thankfully, at just 10 years old, his mother enrolled all three sons in a community acting class, a decision that completely changed his destiny. From small roles in 21 Jump Street and The Wonder Years, Larenz quietly built up experience. But it was Menace to Society that brought him into the spotlight. The problem was, that spotlight was blinding. After playing O-Dog, he became typecast in the eyes of many filmmakers. The offers were always for criminals, villains, dangerous men. Larenz fought for years to shed that label, with roles like the romantic poet in Love Jones, 1997, and the struggling war veteran in Dead Presidents, 1995. But public perception isn't easily erased. In an interview with Extra, he once addressed the rumors of replacing Columbus Short in Scandal. "I know there were a lot of rumors, but right now I'm happy playing a doctor in Rush. It's a chance for the audience to see a different side of me." But this fight wasn't his alone. Even though his career has remained fairly stable, Larenz continues to carry the invisible weight of a violent icon he no longer is. No scandals, no controversies, but the pressure to break character has sometimes forced him to turn down parts that felt too familiar. As of 2025, Larenz Tate is 48 years old with an estimated net worth of around $4.5 million. But the thing more valuable than money was a moment when he appeared at a seminar for high school students in Compton, wearing a black suit, no sunglasses, speaking in a calm, deep voice. "I used to be O-Dog, but that was just a role. This is who I am. A man who wants to inspire, not spread fear." And perhaps that's how Larenz finally escaped the shadow, not by running from it, but by turning it into something meaningful in his own journey of growth. Arnold Johnson as Grandpa. In 1993, at the age of 71, Arnold Johnson appeared in Menace II Society in a small but powerful role, Kane's grandfather. A black man who had survived decades of injustice, now left with only silence, prayers, and a grandson spiraling into darkness. Grandpa, his character, represented a generation that had seen too much fall apart, clinging to faith as their last hope. But the tragedy is, sometimes, faith alone isn't enough to save a young soul. And in real life, Arnold Johnson, too, had quietly witnessed many such breakdowns. Born on November 15, 1921, in New York, a time when America was still deeply divided by race, Arnold grew up in poverty and discrimination. As a black man making a living in New York during the Great Depression, the Hollywood dream was almost non-existent. He started with manual labor, working as a window cleaner, flyer distributor, even a part-time electrician. It wasn't until after the age of 40 that Arnold finally found his way into acting, much later than most. But in that lateness was an unshakable determination. His breakout role came in 1969 with Putney Swope, the satirical cult film by Robert Downey Sr. He continued appearing in Shaft, 1971, often portraying older black men, quiet, stoic, but full of hidden strength. Yet his career gradually faded into background roles. The father, the uncle, the old man in the corner of the screen. No scandals, no major headlines, just a man quietly practicing a craft he truly loved. And perhaps that's what made him invisible. Menace II. Society was Arnold Johnson's last chance to leave a memorable mark, a character symbolizing morality, loss, and helplessness in the face of a fading generation. Just 7 years later, on April 10, 2000, he passed away in Los Angeles from kidney failure, quietly, almost unnoticed. He was 78 years old. According to multiple sources, he left behind a net worth of only around $500,000. Not much for a man who contributed to American cinema for over half a century. Samuel L. Jackson as Tat Lawson. In 1993, Samuel L. Jackson appeared in Menace II Society not in a leading role, but in a single chilling scene, enough to send shivers down viewers' spines. He played Tat Lawson, Kane's drug-dealing father, who coldly pulls out a gun and kills a man right before a family meal. That scene, brutal and haunting, not only shaped the main character's destiny, but etched into viewers' minds a powerful image, that evil can wear the face of family. And few people know, at that time, Samuel L. Jackson was fighting demons of his own. Born on December 21, 1948 in Washington, D.C., Samuel Leroy Jackson grew up in an environment of deprivation and racial discrimination. His father was an alcoholic who left early. Jackson was raised by his mother and grandmother in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a place where the Jackson name held no weight. He had a stutter as a child, and to overcome it, he turned to acting. From school plays to local theater, the shy boy gradually transformed into one of the most iconic voices in the world. But that was only the surface. Behind the spotlight, Samuel L. Jackson was once a serious addict. In the late 1980s, he was deep into heroin and cocaine, to the point that his wife, LaTanya Richardson, had to check him into rehab right after he collapsed on the kitchen floor. Ironically, just weeks after leaving rehab, he landed his breakout role in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, playing an addict. "I didn't act that role," Jackson once said. "I was it." From there, his career exploded. Pulp Fiction, Die Hard with a Vengeance, The Hateful Eight, and of course Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, turning him into one of the highest-grossing actors of all time. But he's never played the easy good guy, because in real life, he's never been an easy man. He openly criticized actors who chase gold statues at the Oscars. "I pick movies I'd want to watch. I don't pick them to win awards." He called them statue hunters, and no one dared argue. As of 2025, Samuel L. Jackson is 76 years old, with a net worth exceeding $250 million, and he's still working. But perhaps the most unforgettable image isn't him in a long coat and sunglasses as Nick Fury. It's the moment he stood before a university crowd, hand on chest, eyes steady, saying, "I'm living proof that failure is not the end." That statement, raw, fierce, and sincere, left the entire room in silence. Just like the man himself, a living symbol of rebirth. Saafir as Cousin Harold. In 1993, Reggie Gibson, stage name Saafir, was 23 years old when he made a brief but striking appearance in Menace to Society as Cousin Harold. No one expected that in just a few minutes, the image of Kane's cousin with a shiny car, a cocky smile, and a bloody collapse at the gas station would become a symbol of the fragility of street life. Saafir never appeared in MASH, but Menace to Society marked both his debut and his final cinematic footprint. Behind that scene was a real life quietly beginning to unravel. Born on August 13, 1970 in Oakland, California, Reggie Gibson grew up in a troubled neighborhood where hip-hop wasn't just music, it was a survival language. He was once a dancer for Digital Underground, the same group as Shock G and Tupac Shakur, before launching a solo rap career. His talent was evident from his earliest recordings. Saafir's lyrics were complex, layered, and mathematically sharp, justifying his self-given nickname, the Saucy Nomad. But behind that brilliance was a past filled with poverty, trauma, and a childhood surrounded by violence. When his debut album, Boxcar Sessions, dropped in 1994, the underground scene believed a new star had arrived. But that spotlight didn't last. Saafir gradually disappeared from the mainstream, shifted to smaller projects, and lived more quietly. By the early 2000s, he was diagnosed with a spinal tumor. Surgery left him partially paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair for the last 2 decades of his life. Music slowed, income dwindled, health declined, but he never complained. Friends said Saafir kept writing, kept reciting poetry, even when no one was buying his records anymore. On November 19, 2024, Saafir passed away in Oakland, the place where he was born, raised, and where he finally closed his eyes, at the age of 54. No major outlets reported the news right away. No official cause of death was announced. His net worth was only around $500,000, a modest figure compared to what he once gave to music. Charles S. Dutton as Mr. Butler. When he joined Menace to Society in 1993 as Mr. Butler, the commanding teacher trying to pull Kane back from the gang-ridden abyss, Charles S. Dutton was 41 years old. Though his role was brief, it left a strong impression on audiences. A man who speaks truth not for politeness, but for survival. Dutton never appeared in MASH, but with what he portrayed in this film, few would have guessed that this dignified man had once spent nearly a decade behind bars for killing a man. His real name is Charles Stanley Dutton, born on January 30th, 1951, in Baltimore, Maryland. Raised in poverty, Dutton dropped out of school in 7th grade and became a street fighter as a teenager. In 1967, at just 16 years old, he was involved in a fight and fatally stabbed an older man. The court ruled it manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years. But less than 2 years later, he was arrested again for illegal possession of a weapon. During his second sentence, an altercation with a prison guard earned him an additional 8 years. In total, nearly a decade within cold stone walls. But that prison wasn't just confinement. It was the starting point for something no one expected. One day, after refusing to clean a prison toilet, he was thrown into solitary confinement and allowed to bring one book. He picked one at random, a collection of plays by Black authors. That's where the story began. Upon release from solitary, He asked for permission to start a drama group in prison. The guards agreed, on the condition that he earn his GED first. And Charles S. Dutton, once a knife-wielding convict, got his GED, continued to Hagerstown Junior College, then graduated from Towson University with a degree in drama. In 1983, he earned a Master of Fine Arts from the Yale School of Drama, one of the most prestigious institutions in America. He was once nearly stabbed to death in prison, once followed the Black Panther movement, once felt no remorse for killing. But art changed him. After release, he became one of the most respected actors in America, known for Rock, A Time to Kill, and countless powerful supporting roles. Dutton never chased glamour or golden statues. He chose roles that told the truth, just like Mr. Butler once said, "If you don't change, you die." As of 2025, he is 74 years old, still alive, with an estimated net worth of around $9 million. But the most valuable thing he owns isn't money. It's a black and white photo he often keeps with him. Himself on a prison stage in 1976, wearing inmate clothes, reading a script, eyes lifted toward the lights. That was the moment of destiny, where a murderer began his rebirth, through dialogue. Glenn Plummer as Purnell. In 1993, Glenn E. Plummer stepped into Menace II society at age 31, playing Purnell, the man who was once a street legend, now sitting behind bars, facing regret. He wasn't a lead character, but his silence spoke louder than any lecture. And in real life, Glenn Plummer also faced turning points just as pivotal. Glenn Earl Plummer was born on August 18, 1961, in Richmond, California. Growing up in poor neighborhoods of Northern California, he struggled early on to pursue the arts. Without fancy stages or professional acting classes, Glenn learned acting on the streets, through nameless supporting roles on late 1980s television. His part as High Top in Colors, 1988 by Dennis Hopper, was the first breakthrough that got directors' attention, a wild gang member with a fragile core, much like the youth Glenn once was. But despite appearing in over 100 films and television shows, Glenn Plummer's career never truly took off. From Showgirls to Speed, South Central to Saw II, he was the guy everyone recognized, but few remembered by name. Some sources say he faced financial struggles, especially in the 2010s, when roles became scarce. At times, he had to take low-budget indie projects just to keep working. As of 2025, Glenn Plummer is 63 years old, with an estimated net worth of about $800,000. In a rare interview, he reflected on his scene in Menace II society. "I didn't act the role of Purnell. I had lived it. I was the guy who taught wrong, then lived long enough to feel the guilt." And perhaps that moment of Purnell sitting quietly in prison, tears falling in silence, was Glenn Plummer's true confession to the past, and a gift to anyone who still has the chance to change. Vonte Sweet as Sharif Butler. In 1993, when Vonte Sweet took on the role of Sharif in Menace II society, he was only 21 years old. He played a young man who had just found light through faith, trying to leave behind a violent world and start over, but fate gave him no chance. Sharif was killed suddenly in a shooting before he could escape the darkness, and sadly, in real life, Vonte Sweet's career also seemed to be cut off at a fateful crossroads. Born in 1971, Vonte Sweet's entire career was tied to Los Angeles, the heart of the film industry, and also a place where many dreams go unfulfilled. Before Menace II society, he appeared in Predator II, 1990, and Boys and the Hood, two landmark films about this fractured city. Though his roles were supporting, Vonte always brought a chilling sense of authenticity, as if he were reliving his own youth on screen. After appearing in these major films, many believed Vonte Sweet would rise to stardom like several of his co-stars, but that never happened. While Larenz Tate and Jada Pinkett Smith climbed to A-list status, Vonte's name gradually disappeared from casting calls. Future roles became rare. A few television appearances, then Traffic, 2000, and after that, a long silence. He came close to fame, then vanished, like hundreds who passed through Hollywood unnoticed. As of 2025, Vonte Sweet is 54 years old, with an estimated net worth of only around $300,000, a modest amount for someone who once stood beside the biggest names of the 1990s. He still occasionally acts in minor film roles, but most of his time is now spent working other jobs to make a living. Khandi Alexander as Karen Lawson. In 1993, Khandi Alexander was 35 years old when she took on the role of Karen Lawson, Kane's drug-addicted mother in Menace 2 Society. In a brief scene, her character appeared like a ghost, a dazed, broken woman who disappeared from her son's life only to become a haunting memory. Karen died of an overdose, leaving Kane and the audience with a void that could never be filled. What made the performance so haunting was that it didn't feel fake. And that's because the actress portraying her, Khandi Alexander, understood what it meant to sacrifice, to endure, to live in the dark, and still reach for the light. Harriet Renee Khandi Alexander was born on September 4, 1957, in Jacksonville, Florida. Her mother was an opera and jazz singer, her father a construction contractor. The family moved to Queens, New York, where Khandi grew up surrounded by live music, the glamour of the stage, and the cold emptiness of abandoned theaters. She began her career with her feet, dancing on Broadway, then becoming the choreographer for Whitney Houston's world tour from 1988 to 1992. Few knew that the graceful woman on stage had eyes that had seen too many failures, and had struggled just to be called an actress rather than a backup dancer. After playing Karen, Khandi Alexander's acting career exploded with a string of emotionally complex roles, from Jackie Robbins in ER to Dr. Alex Woods in CSI, Miami to a drug-addicted mother in The Corner, a performance that brought her to the peak of artistic acclaim and is still considered one of the finest portrayals on American television in the early 21st century. But behind the success was a heavy price. The roles she chose, dead mothers, abandoned wives, addicts, victims of violence, forced her to dig deep into real pain. I had to learn to live with the loneliness of my characters, even when the camera stopped rolling, she once said. As of 2025, Khandi Alexander is 67 years old, with an estimated net worth of about $2 million. But her real value can't be measured in money. A behind-the-scenes photo from 2000 captured her sitting alone in an empty room, wearing the robe of her character Fran Boyd in The Corner, her eyes hollow after filming the scene where her character's son was arrested. She didn't know the camera was still rolling. But that moment, part character, part herself, was later edited into a symbol of maternal sorrow. And no one else has ever performed that pain quite like Khandi Alexander. 30 years later, the spotlight has faded, but the scars remain. From towering fame to tragic downfall, each actor from Menace 2 Society carries a story that's never been fully told. Do you have the courage to discover the rest? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to uncover more truths that will leave you speechless.